What's that?
I don't know, for some reason Zoom announced that we're recording.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Okay,
asking
so-
for consent.
It never did before.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
Anyway, we're on.
Oh, okay, thought so. All right, evening, everybody. I'll call the meeting to order. An ambitious agenda tonight, so we'll get moving on it. Before we get going, I have several thank yous or recognition that I'd like to make. First, Michael Mell, this is his last night with us. Michael has been with us for quite a while through videoing when we had live meetings, and then he took over and started the Zoom meetings, and really has been quite an asset for the village. And Michael, I appreciate all your work and being with us. It makes our life a lot easier. Your minutes, I mean, you know, just thank you. Great job, and we'll miss you. And wherever you're getting into, best to you. So thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
will be missed.
Next is Larry Burke, which I might have to follow up on our next meeting. I did contact the person who had sent us the email. I want to get permission to kind of talk about medical issues or whatever. I don't want to just be throwing stuff out there. But Larry, while on duty, there was an incident where a resident, I believe, had a stroke, and Larry immediately came to the scene. We do have an email from the person thanking Larry for his professionalism and his quick service. He took care of everything, and it's a great email. But like I said, I'd like to get permission to read it before I do that. Don't know if there's liability issues or whatever, but I'll check on that. But Larry, thank you so much. If you're on, it's great to get feedback from people when things like this happen. So thank you, Larry. Next, I just wanted to give a shout out to Michelle Patterson and the Highlands Garden Club. They do all the gardening at the foot of Main and also around the bandstand. I stopped and talked to Michelle just over the weekend. She's by herself. You might see her up across from the Nelsonville Green. She lives there and does work constantly there. And then I think that spilled over to Nelsonville's Village Hall and also across the street. So she puts in a real lot of time. A lot of the other women are getting a bit old, I guess, and are having a hard time keeping up or coming down and volunteering, and they do their best. Michelle's really taken up the slack, and they could really use some help. So any gardeners out there, people that want to water, be really appreciated if you could contact the Highland Garden Club. I don't have a number, but I'd like to thank Michelle Patterson. She's really been doing the bulk of the job. So thank you very much. Also, Ruth Ann and her husband were doing watering and also doing plantings down at the barrels down at the dock, and which also look really great. So if you drive by there, just take a look, and they've done a great job. If you happen to see Michelle, stop and thank her for her service. Let's see, what else do we have here? Just on Facebook a bit, the Tots Park looks great. Jerry Allen donated all the wood chips for that, and Andrea, Connor, and Hudson, and two unnamed grandpas spread all of the chips. So it really looks nice, and nice job. So just wanted a shout out for that.
I think that one of the grandfathers was Ruth Ann's husband. Does that make sense? He was there today. They were weeding, and then they started breaking out the chips.
Right.
Oh.
Good. Thank you guys, and Andrea, nice job. And last is the fire company is looking for exercise equipment. They want to get an exercise room going. So that was also on Facebook, kind of looking for any donations for that. So if anybody out there has some used equipment or equipment that they bought thinking they were gonna, put it to use and haven't, give them a call at 845-265-9241, and I'm sure they'll appreciate it. And that's all I have, but always good to pass on some good news and thank yous. Next, after quite a while and a great job by all here for the police survey results. We have a great number of people that responded, and I will turn this over to Fran, I believe.
Yeah, Dave, I was going to ask you, did you want to do something? This will be 20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more. Did you want to handle something else first, or you want to just go right into the police?
We can go into the survey. We'll have enough time.
Okay.
If we have to, we'll just cut off at the end of the meeting, and we'll have to do short-term rentals.
Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint presentation going through the entire survey, so I will start by sharing the screen.
One thing, Fran, if the people who put that together and whoever you want to just give a shout out to, that'd be good, so people know the efforts that went into that.
Other than myself and Kathleen, who helped with the questions, and Stephanie, who helped with the questions up early, the Survey Monkey and the PowerPoint presentation I pretty much pulled together on my own. So I'm going to just let it go at that, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. And we will, and I'm sorry, Larry also got involved in it. So I'm sharing the screen, and hopefully everyone can see. We're going to go through each question. In each question, you'll see if I can do this, let's see now. There we go. Each question, you'll see a diagram and then the data behind it. But by the numbers, first of all, we got 382 responses, 367 by email, which was 56% of the email invitations we sent out, and an additional 15 paper responses. The survey was open for a total of 53 days. Okay, so I'm going to, let me just hide this whole thing so that, I don't know, if I'm sharing my screen, are you seeing the pictures besides? You probably are. Or are you just seeing the PowerPoint?
So the pictures are on the side, the right-hand side.
Okay, let me see if I can get rid of these. If somebody can.
It's fairly large, Fran.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, you can leave it. Yeah.
That works even better. Okay, so question one, most of the diagrams I tried to pull in the diagrams by percentages, and then the data will follow, just so that you have it or anybody else is looking at it. So describe your status in the village of Cold Spring. 85% of those who answered the survey, and these numbers are the total of both the survey answered online and the papers. 85% were full-time village residents, and you can see the breakdown on the 6% own a business in the village. Some were part-time, some don't live in the village at all, so they may be business owners in the village, but that's just the way that came out. And the numbers will follow each screen, so you have both the responses in percentage and the number of people who actually responded to those. Unless somebody stops me, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each data screen. If you're a village resident, how long have you lived in the village? The majority were here between 0 and 5 years. And then you have 16 to 25 was the next one at 18%. A few people were here more than 40 years. You have about 9%. So actually 35 people who answered the survey have lived here more than 40 years. And that's the breakdown of numbers. And 370 answered that. Age. Interestingly, the 46 to 75 group was the majority. You had about 68% of the older population. We have a few younger people, and a handful of people decided not to answer. 6% or 21 people were over 75 who answered that. Gender identity, mostly female. A few people decided not to answer. Nobody came in the other category. 4 people were non-binary, non-conforming. 18 decided not to answer, and the rest is quite obvious. By race, 84% white or Caucasian, 11% preferred not to answer, and so on and so forth. 1% Black African-American, 1% Asian, 2% clicked other, and 4% Hispanic. So the numbers are, there were no American Indian, Alaska Natives, no Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders. 3 Black or African Americans answered, and so on up from there. 7% were other. Now it could have been a combination of things, because you could actually pick more than one on this. And what do you see as the three greatest public safety concerns facing the village? Drugs and traffic and parking. This is sort of the high point of it, mostly everybody's thoughts right now. These are the things that are the biggest public safety concerns in the village: drugs, addiction and overdose, traffic issues, parking. The numbers show how many people picked each of these. Now, obviously, the numbers are higher than the total number that answered, because everybody got to pick at least three. In this slide, there was a slide line for other. 31 people answered other, and in this corner, I tried to break down as much of the others as I could do. So 15 people said the public safety concerns are related to crowds, tourists, hikers, et cetera, et cetera. They're related to trash, vehicles, and parking problems. So I grouped that together. 4 people were not sure. 3 people said COVID was a big public safety, and 3 people said the police are being bullies, and there were 6 miscellaneous answers. Some of them were Trumpism and a few other interesting thoughts.
Hey, Fran, the pictures are now getting in the way. The last screen, I couldn't see the numbers on the right. So if there's a way to.
Can you, I think you have to do that on your own screen. Can you, I think on your own screen, you can sort of maybe hit the little X right here and shut this down. Let me see. Because if you have this and you go over to this corner,
I got it. I'll just move it to the other side. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So that's the first 6 questions. Question number 7, if I can get back here. Which departments do you understand serve the village of Cold Spring? We throw everything out there. Obviously, 100% of the people understand that the Cold Spring Police Department. Interestingly, 25% of the people who answered feel that New York State Parks Police also serve the village, and 32% say Metro North do. So looking at those numbers, 93 people who responded to this feel that New York State Park Police serve the village of Cold Spring. And the rest, you can just see New York State Troopers, Metro North Police. So if you look at that chart as we go on, and we'll see some of the other answers, this may be one of the reasons why people think that that the Cold Spring Police Department is redundant. Okay. How often do you interact with officers from the Cold Spring Police Department? Most people say rarely. You have a few occasionally, a few never, and 20 people actually said they interact frequently. 196 people rarely interact with the officers in the department. Okay, some of these are a little long. I tried to spread them out so you could read whatever we could on the chart. If you had contact with the Cold Spring Police Department in the last 5 years, were those experiences related to any of the following? 52% answered that their experience was related to a conversation on the street, a community meeting, coffee with a cop had a few answers: domestic violence, drugs, et cetera, medical emergency. So the numbers come out. 150 people had a conversation on the street, 103 traffic or parking. Now the question did not ask whether it was somebody was parked in your driveway or you got stopped for some kind of a traffic violation. The question was not geared that way. 14 people used the dark house program. And there were 55 people who answered other. I tried to break down as much as I could. 31 of them reported an incident. A lot of them were dogs or animal issues or property lost or property found that they brought back to the police department. 7 people answered none. 6 people said an alarm or a false alarm. 5 people said the police overreacted or they were harassed by the police. And then there were 6 miscellaneous that I was trying to categorize as much as I could. And I got to a point where rather than listing 111, I just grouped the last couple. Number 10. Okay, number 10, The question said, do you agree with the following statements about the Cold Spring Police Department? There were 5 options: strongly agree, agree, don't know, disagree, or strongly disagree. I bulked them together. So strongly agree and agree, I put together as one total. And so here, let me see, I'm getting all kinds of stuff on my screen I don't need, sorry. Okay, so here 238 people strongly agree or agree that the Cold Spring Police Department make them feel safe in the village. 71 people say that they effectively and appropriately engage the youth, but these are all the strongly agree or agree categories, and there are charts for this in a minute. 184 people said they would feel comfortable filing a complaint, but as you look on to the next couple of screens, you'll see that switch. A lot of people did not know, and so 231 said they don't know if the Cold Spring effectively and appropriately engages youth, or they work with community members, or all of these questions. There are a lot of do not know, and disagree or strongly disagree. 100 people said the officers, they don't agree that the officers make an effort to know the villages, and 84 said that they don't agree that they would feel comfortable filing a complaint against a police officer. 38 don't agree that officers work with the community members to solve local problems. So as this trickles through towards the end, when we get to the open-end question, you'll see some of these things follow through. This is the data, and I broke it down by the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so you can make a little bit more sense out of it. As I was going through this, I realized that the next time we do a survey, some of our questions have to be a little bit less complicated and easier to chart. But anyway, so the data is here. Question 11, what factors do you consider to be important when hiring officers for the Cold Spring Police Department? Past performance, prior law enforcement, racial diversity, gender diversity, and then there was a section for other. Basically, these 2 picked up the most of it. And in the 59 that said other, 17 people, or as many as I could find, talked about somebody who has interest in the community or knowledge of a small community. People mentioned that they should be physically fit and qualified. They should have training in mental health and de-escalation. Our officers should be personable and friendly, and we should do background checks. And then there were 17 miscellaneous other things. Excuse me. That's my... Okay. 3 most important areas of support and training that can be offered to Cold Spring police officers. They're going to have 3 different slides here. The first most important, 62% said the most important thing would be training in de-escalation techniques, bias-related training, response to substance abuse issues, and so on and so forth. That's the first most important. The second most important, response to mental health calls, comes right up there, and then bias-related training, and then post-traumatic incident support and counseling came up in some of these. And the third most important, people feel, 74% of the people feel working with non-English speakers is the third most important area of training our officers should have. 52% said post-traumatic incident and response to youthful offenders. And if you break down the data, you can see it a little bit clearer. De-escalation got 252 votes. Bias-related training got 179. Response to substance abuse issues, 161. 194 for response to mental health calls, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these were the way that broke down. Okay, they got a little bit complicated. And if funding were available, what additional equipment or support would you like to see our officers have? And this was rank. You got to rank five items. So 49% of people ranked body cameras first. 27% of people the most ranked street cameras second. 33 ranked handheld license plate readers third. 31 held handheld license plate readers fourth. And handheld ticket writers came in fifth. This is the total by the count of how many votes each item got. this was almost pretty much steady across. People feel that these things are important, but by far, body cameras came up with the total number on the first vote. And that's also a breakdown. And actually, this isn't going to take that long. Last question. Okay. Please share any additional thoughts, observations, or suggestions you have regarding the Cold Spring Police Department. 40% of those who did the survey submitted answers in the last question. I tried to break them down. 152. There were 152 responses. I put a disclaimer down the bottom here just so that everyone knows that this is basically my looking at these things and picking out the best I could. I didn't pick any, I didn't mention here anything that had mentions that were mentioned less than 2% of the time. So 12% of the people basically said the police are doing a good job. 10% of the people mentioned get out of your cars and walk. We want our police to walk. We want to see them on the streets. We need noise, parking, and traffic enforcement. 7% of the people mentioned that they feel our police are professional. And again, 7% said the village is over-policed and Cold Spring Police Department is redundant with the Putnam County Sheriff and also with some of the other things that we saw in a previous slide. They feel that Metro North and New York State and the Parks Department and everything else. 5% mentioned that they feel our police are approachable and friendly and fair. And again, 5% said we have a good mix. We have a mix of very good officers and bullies. Some are good, some are bad. 5% mentioned that the department is fine the way they are and we need our department. And 4% said we don't need them and they should be abolished. 4% said people are not aligned with the needs of the community. I'm sorry, not people. The police are not aligned with the needs of the community and the police need to engage the community more. And this probably goes along with get out of your cars and walk. 3% said they don't like seeing the police cars idling, although some did admit they understand why that happens, but they don't like seeing the police cars idling outside of the office or outside of the pizza shop. 3% had praise for Officer in Charge Burke. In some instances, they said, ask him the questions because he knows what's best for the community, what's best for the department. 3% said they were harassed by an officer or the officer overreacted or they had a negative experience with an officer. And additional 3% said they feel the department is too expensive. We should cut the Cold Spring funding and add money for support organizations, for example, mental health and so on and so forth. A couple of mentions that I didn't list here is a couple of people would like to see at least one full-time officer, get rid of some part-time officers and have a full-time officer. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of my presentation. It was shorter than I thought. So that's what I got. I mean, I will send a PowerPoint presentation to Jeff. He's going to post it on the village website tomorrow. I'll share the rest with the village board. If you have any questions, I'm not sure the board that is, I'm not sure that I can answer, but I can try. And then we'll just share it from there. It was interesting. And you know, sort of straight across the board, it's for the number of answers we got, we were pretty level, I thought. And some of it you can see streams through of different answers, but so that's where we're at with that. And I'm done.
Nice job of analysis.
Thank you so much, Fran.
You're very welcome. As I said, Jeff will post it tomorrow, this PowerPoint presentation, so anybody can have the numbers and the data.
Great. Very nice job, Fran. Thanks for all your time.
Thank you.
Anyone have questions for Fran? And I guess she asked, no one did, but
No.
I'll ask straight up. Okay, well, we'll follow up with that and take a closer look once you send it to us. So again, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, and we head to old business. We have the Putnam Wine and Food Fest. I believe we have the application in front of us. We have one chart that I had a hard time figuring out. But is Lauren on tonight?
Yes.
Would you like to beam her in?
Lauren, unmute yourself, please.
Lauren, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, there we go.
Hi, Lauren, how are you?
I'm good. How's everyone?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you.
Beautiful.
So here we are phasing out of COVID, hopefully. You'll be the first kind of event we're entertaining. So maybe you could just run through it a little bit for us, and how you're going to address the COVID concerns that are still lingering. And also,
Oh, I sent you a guideline. Did you get that?
yes, if you just
Okay.
want to just run through it, I think that would be helpful.
Can you hold on because let me get my, basically, I'm going to do the guidelines from the guidelines regarding the COVID. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Mhm.
Kind of moving
Okay.
around now. You're good now.
I'm getting up now because I'm looking at my, okay, here we go. Okay, for the attendees, we were going to ask them to wear a mask and do the vaccination, proof of vaccination and negative COVID-19 test. And we're going to have update the website with the Excel app so they can either give us the app at the entrance or so a couple of days before the festival starts, we want them to fill out a questionnaire about the COVID testing and so forth and so on. And we'll also have the signage at the festival about the social distancing. I think it's 5 feet now. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
I think
Yeah.
it's still 6. Kathleen, isn't that correct?
That was the guidance from the health department.
Yeah.
On the issue we inquired about the other day. Yeah, still
It's
6.
still 6. Okay. Okay. And we're going to have a farmer's market style tent set up because we don't want a large tent like I usually do, put all the wineries inside. So we're going to have everyone have their own space. They'll bring their own tents and tables all set up. And of course, we're going to sanitize make sure the portable bathrooms have the hand washing station and the hand sanitizer. Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, and security will be, and the staff will be checking in, monitoring the social distancing. And we also trying to maybe get a temperature check for all the attendees. We're going to have the wristbands, basically 4 different types of wristbands. For the tasters, we're going to have 2 wristbands, one that's for vaccinated people, one for people without vaccination. Same thing for the designated drivers. So, and what else do we need? So yeah, that's basically it. Any other questions?
Yes. On the diagram, you show axe throwing. I really don't think that's a good idea.
I'm sorry, what?
You show axe throwing.
Oh, yeah, because it's a truck, the Hudson Valley Hatchet truck. Maybe they haven't confirmed yet. The same thing that John did at his bear thing. He had the truck there and people were playing that game.
It's a game.
Yeah, it's a hatchet. It comes, the Hudson Valley hatchet.
Is it a real hatchet?
I don't think so.
Unfortunately, this is the latest thing that people do. They go to
Yeah,
these centers and do axe throwing. Makes no sense to me, but I figure just that's because I'm old. I'm not really sure.
yeah,
But
yeah. If you were at,
it's sort of like, what we used to do with darts, they do with an axe.
oh, but it's not dangerous.
It depends.
So it's not a real axe.
No, it's not.
Okay. At the entrance, you have the entrance to the venue. on the north side of the
Pavilion.
park.
Yeah, where
No,
the
it's on the
pavilion
south.
is.
It's the south side of the pavilion, the north side of the park. How many people will you have at the entrance?
At the entrance, I'm gonna have like 3 security people and about 5 either volunteers or staff.
Okay. Now you show a total attendance of 1,500 people a day.
I doubt it. I'm hoping, but I doubt it.
Well,
Because usually we have like 400 people might come in for 2 hours, then they leave, and then another 400, or but usually
so
we-
my concern is parking. You're showing that all of the parking on the exterior of Mayor's Park will be reserved for vendors and
oh,
volunteers.
no. Remember we paid for that where's the highway department is for that parking space? So
But that's what it shows on your diagram.
oh, no. Okay, no, that's outside where Fairfield, where you have those little parking spots. I was just gonna put the artists, the musicians,
Yes,
and
Right.
some, yeah. But we're gonna have the vendor parking at the highway department.
okay. So, and how many vendors are you expecting?
So far I have 15 vendors.
Okay, but I think you have setups for 25?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's just a rough draft. I mean, I really can't say how many vendors until probably end of June.
okay. That's fine. My
And the
concern,
parking for the public, the school said that I could use their parking spot.
the school said you could use their parking spot. Where is
The high
the
school.
the high school?
Or-
And
yeah,
how, so this is how many parking spaces and at the high school?
yeah, the grounds of the parking lot and the parking where they park the staffing and all that and the visitors. They said I can use that lot.
Okay, and how many parking spaces is that?
They didn't tell me.
Okay, the concern is parking for 1,500 people. And you say that you expect people to come to the festival and then go to other sites nearby, which I assume means they're going to walk.
Yes, but most of the people will be taking train because Metro North is going to be one of our sponsors. So they'll be taking the train anyway. So we won't need that many parking space. Also, Amtrak will be sponsoring. So they'll be taking the Amtrak to Poughkeepsie and then take the Metro North down. So I don't think I will need that many parking space anyway.
Okay, so my concern is if you have 400 people, 400 people, 400 people, 400 people, and let's say 50% of them come by Metro North Amtrak, you're still going to have 200 people at a time in the lot that will have driven to the lot, because after all, you're handing out the designated driver wristbands. So you are expecting people to drive.
Okay, they're going to drive to the school and park there, and I'm hoping that I'll get the trolley. I'm making Miss, I have to speak to her, Elisa, the trolley. I'm trying to get the trolley to shuttle them from the school to the venue.
Okay, my point was there'll be no parking on Fair Street, none whatsoever.
No,
We know that the municipal lot is always full anyway, and
right.
Main Street is always full anyway. So I have no idea where these additional people are going to park. And that is a concern, but you say you've got an area reserved at the high school, but you're not sure how many parking
No,
spaces.
I could find that out, yes.
You're hoping to get the trolley to go from the high school to the fairgrounds, to
Right.
Mayor's Park, and then back again. And that will take care of the people who need to park.
Right. And if I can't get the trolley, then I'll ask one of the school buses to.
So you'll rent
do
a
the
school
shuttle.
bus.
Right,
You'll rent a school bus, okay.
right.
Um,
How, Marie, how has, when this event has happened in the past,
Mhm.
how has parking been handled? Has the
When
school
this-
been okay
when-
before?
The school was never used before.
No, they parked on the street.
John Shearer would arrange a shuttle from the Metro North parking lot
Right. They're gonna be parking there as well.
if they can find space.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And we have had a significant problem with people parking on Fair Street, on
Right.
the sides of the roads, and that has been a terrible problem for us. In addition, if I go back 3 years, which may have been the last time this occurred, it didn't occur in 2020. The municipal lot was not necessarily as congested as it is now. Thinking back 2 years, the number of people that were using the village for hiking and parking in the village was less than it is now or was last year. So going back 2 years, we didn't have quite so much of a problem. It was a problem, but not quite so much. Now you can't find a place to park. So it's just a concern that I have. Another question, Lauren, you're opening on Sunday at 11 o'clock.
Right.
I believe that no alcohol can be served before noon. Is that correct?
Yes, no, that's not right. Because it's a festival, we can do that. They started, I've been doing this now for 10 years. So New York State Liquor Authority, they started at 10. They can sample. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But in the liquor, yeah,
I know liquor stores can't open before noon on Sunday.
right. But they gave us okay to do
Okay.
that. Yeah, so it's okay. That's why I get the permit to do that. Yeah.
Sorry, I've been asking too many questions.
That's all right.
Hello, I have some questions.
Okay.
Lauren, you and I are gonna have to meet at the Mayor's Park and go over this. You have, you should be using the map that we provided you.
Yes, I will. I just,
Because you have places, you cannot have anything on the infield or
okay,
in the dugouts. Because the dugouts are adjacent to the infield unless we rope it off. So you and I, if this gets approved, you and I and other members of the Recreation Commission will have to walk through exactly where things are gonna be. In the past, we have let handicap parking at some spots inside the pavilion, but we have never blocked off spaces in front along Fair Street. Vendors, musicians, everyone have had to park at the highway department. So that would have to be something that trustees would have to say that we can block off parking on Fair Street. We have not done that, to my knowledge, in the past, unless it was done without the Recreation Commission or the village knowing. So the map definitely needs to have some adjustment.
no, that was just a draft.
Right. Oh, I know that. I
Yeah.
know the thing, but if you look at the directions, it says that the Recreation Commission will meet with the renter prior to the event to make sure that everything is where it needs to be, so we don't have any damage to the baseball field.
Exactly.
That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah,
So
it's not a problem.
In the past, where have the vendors been placed during similar events?
The highway garage.
No, not for parking. I mean, the setup for the vendors, for the people providing samples.
Oh, inside the park, yeah. Inside Mayor's Park.
So what is shown right now? I'm trying to follow this diagram. What's shown
Are you-
right now?
Don't
The
follow-
vendors, not the vendors itself?
The parking for the vendors and artists and
Okay.
staff along with Fair Street on the bottom.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was reading it as if it were like stalls for vendors, but you were thinking of cars for the vendors there.
What you're talking about, that map that I roughly put together.
Yes, it says vendor spaces and there are
Yes,
seven.
vendor spaces or tents for the vendor
That's
booths.
what I thought,
Yeah,
because there are more parking spaces there than 13.
Right, yeah, those are vendor booths she's mentioning. We just have to rearrange where those vendor booths can be. They
Right.
can't on the baseball field.
exactly.
Right, okay.
Lauren, a question?
I'm not good at putting things together like that. My graphic artist is not here right now. So when we meet with the with you at the park, then I'll ask him to be there so he can
Great.
do that.
Lauren, a question. You have wristbands for vaccinated and non-vaccinated people. How are you going to know who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated?
Because we're gonna have, again, we're gonna have them have the app. If they do the Excelsior app, they have to provide proof of the vaccination. And they also have to provide proof of their COVID test.
Okay, and if they don't do the Excelsior app,
They have to bring it, the card, the ID.
okay.
Lauren, you show that there's going to be a music tent.
Yes, I'm not sure where that's gonna be yet. Because the last time we had it in the pavilion,
So,
that was, yeah.
I just like that. I think that we're really preliminary here and not, and we really don't have anything nailed down. So it's hard for us to kind of get a hold of anything. So I think meeting with the rec department as soon as you can to go over your plan,
Mhm.
and filling out the form and filling out the map, the way, you know, so that we actually know where everything's going to be. Address the parking problems. If Haldane's going to allow you to park, then I would like to see, and I'll leave this up to Ruth Ann, I think we should have something from Haldane saying, yes, we agree with that, you know, yes,
Okay.
we allow. And then, you know, and your plan, like, I think we need to know if, you know, you're saying the trolley, well, okay, but if the trolley's not there, we can't just say, well, maybe I'll get a bus or something. We need something a little more concrete, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, trolley, you know, if the trolley is going to be there, they'd have to, you know, they wouldn't be doing their route. I don't think that'd be just for you. So, because, you know, usually all their stops would take them away. They wouldn't be really useful for it to you unless they have one designated for your fare. So if they're allowing that, it would be great to have something from the county saying that, so that we know. And if they aren't going to allow, then like if you're going to have a bus or something, you're going to need a driver and you know, so that we know that stuff's in place. And
Usually the school bus, if it's a school bus, they usually have their own drivers anyway, so.
yeah,
Do
but we
you think
need to,
using a Haldane bus, renting a Haldane bus or another, an outside vendor?
I'm not sure yet it depends on the price, of course.
Yeah, we can't, I agree with Dave. We can't get this approved.
Depends on the cost of the school bus charter.
I'm just not aware of Haldane renting out its buses for
No, I
private.
usually use, when I do it in, when I had it in Patterson, I usually use Chappaqua Transportation. So.
okay, so I would get those in places like, you know, so that we know that, you know, you have this and not like, hopefully we'll have it, you know, we need to know for sure how you run, you know.
Right, exactly.
So, you know, at this point, I think we're all willing to allow you to have as long as all, you know, the parking's addressed and, you know, and COVID seems to be addressed, you know, and you nail it down and it goes to the rec department, you do a walkthrough so Ruth Ann can explain and make sure you're on the same page with everything. And then
Okay.
come back to us. And the sooner you do that, I think the sooner you'll be able to advertise or make sure that you can go ahead. But I think we need to have that meeting as soon as possible.
Okay.
Lauren, a couple of other questions on the application. It wants to know whether or not you're going to have the Phillipstown ambulance. Now you do show,
Yes.
you do show an ambulance on your chart. And so have you gotten an agreement from the Phillipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps that they will provide an ambulance on site both days?
They said they would, but I told them I'm waiting for your confirmation before I speak to them.
Okay, I would think that we would like to see that confirmation as well.
Okay.
And in my opinion, you will need the Village of Cold Spring Police there as well. And I don't know how
Right.
many, but I would assume that's a question of Larry. How many police does he expect he'll need for traffic control minimally? And the last thing is you'll need to rent the a Village of Cold Spring Highway Department parking area.
That's already paid for that. It's already paid for.
From last.
Okay,
Okay, I think, yeah, we need to talk to Larry or Ruth Ann, if you could talk to Larry on what's needed. I know in the past they've had, I'm not sure which event, they hired their own, like, interior security, not exterior, you know, not for the.
Yeah, I
not-
have my own security company that I use.
Right.
but
So,
I think we're gonna need somebody on Fair Street
right,
to manage
and I think
traffic.
that's, Larry's
Oh.
really familiar with these, so I would run that all by Larry.
That's also a
Yeah.
society weekend. So for Larry's planning, that'll be a really long day.
What
What-
society is it, Kathleen?
Film Society. Isn't this Saturday and Sunday?
During the day?
Right, right. And then the Film Society at night. So just, we'll have, it'll be a long day for patrol.
Yes,
Oh,
I'll
no.
speak to Captain Nicholas. Actually, I'm sending him a text right now.
Who's
Just
Captain?
Nicholas.
Captain Nicholas from the ambulance.
Oh,
Okay,
Falcone, Nick Falcone.
Yeah. Yes.
all right, so if you
Yep,
can get all,
Falcone, yeah.
I think if you can get everything in order and meet with Ruth Ann, and then come back to us, I think then we'll not have, you know, a solid idea of your plan, and we can move from there.
Okay, so,
We need to have confirmation that you do have the ambulance car, that you do have police, that you do have whatever's needed, okay?
am I supposed to get in touch with the police, or you were supposed to be?
I think Ruth Ann, can you do that? Or if you can ask Larry what he feels we need and what the cost of that would be, if we need extra police, or if not, whatever. He's worked everyone we've had.
I'll meet with Larry and Lauren, I will email you my phone number.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye, Lauren, thank you.
Okay, next up is the LOA with the Chamber of Commerce regarding the bathrooms and the use of it by the chamber. We have am I skipping ahead, or that's where we're at, right?
That's where we're at, right?
Okay, so this is the latest version here. I know Marie had a bunch of red lines, which I think they've corrected.
Yes, everything looks good now.
I had one, and sorry for this late. On number 3, the restocking of toilet paper and hand sanitizer as needed during those periods. The village is not going to be restocked. They'll restock when they come in. They're not going to be restocking if it runs out during the day. I don't think that's clear there, unless I'm misreading that. Says they also restock toilet paper, hand soap, and hand sanitizer as needed during those periods.
Yeah. Are there supplies in the supply room there that the whoever's in the chamber office can have access to if they need them?
Yeah, it's definitely there, but you know, if this is a contract and it says we're doing that, then we need to take that out.
Okay. Yeah.
I was under the impression that the chamber volunteers would be restocking from the supply that is stored in the building. Is
Right,
that
but this is under what the village should do, so.
right? I'm saying
Yeah.
I recall it being a chamber responsibility on that day, on Saturday.
So it just needs to be reworded again?
Yeah, I think so.
The agreement doesn't say Saturdays for the village responsibility.
What's that?
The agreement that Eliza gave us, the village's responsibility is not included for Saturdays. It's Friday, it's the days that the highway department works. Saturdays, I believe, is part of the chamber's responsibility. in this
Yes.
agreement.
Yeah, Jeff is right. It says that after Memorial Day, the village's responsibility is to restock Sunday through Friday. So Saturday is a chamber responsibility.
Right, but I can see what Dave is saying. The way it reads is we're gonna restock as it's needed. So if the bathroom runs out of toilet paper at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're not gonna run in and restock it.
Okay, look at
It's done.
A2.
A2?
A as an able
Okay.
to
Mhm.
manage and fund, blah, blah, blah.
Restock as needed.
Yeah, it says every Saturday.
Saturday.
Doesn't mention the rest of the week, which this does on number 3, stating that we, the village, will be restocking during those periods.
Right.
My
Yes.
question is that we are going to restock, but we're not going to, if it runs out in the middle of the day on Sunday, whose responsibility is that?
So I guess
You're right.
maybe
You're
the
right.
wording needs to be adjusted to address what you're saying, Dave. Our understanding was from what Bugsy had said, or maybe you had said, was that the highway department would go in and just do like every day once a quick cleanup and restocking if needed. And that's what I'm trying to say, but maybe
Right.
the language needs to be adjusted to make it clearer, so it's not like if we run out of toilet paper, it's
Yeah, I agree with what you said. The highway department will go in once each
A
of those
day.
days and clean it and restock. So maybe, yeah, maybe it just needs to be
just
worded that
adjust
way.
the language. Is
Yeah.
that
I
what
think
you
it's
mean?
just the language that
Yeah.
we'll
Yes.
restock once a day or
Once a day during those periods.
Do you guys want to make the adjustment as you feel comfortable, or would you like me to make a version and send it back to you?
well,
Can I?
if you're good with, I guess we could do that. Jeff, could you kind of throw that together, and if everyone agrees?
Yep. I'll take care of it in the morning.
Okay.
So everybody else fine with everything else? I think everything else looks fine.
Yes.
With that
Yes.
change. So I'll make a motion to, with that one change to number 3, that we'll be stocking once a day on that during those periods, approve the LOA with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes. Second.
Second it. We have to make a motion to authorize you to sign it.
I guess, I guess it should be a motion for the mayor to sign. Somebody wants to make that instead.
So I
Make a
make,
motion for Mayor Morandi to sign the LOA with the Chamber of Commerce regarding the Main Street Visitor Information Booth and Village restrooms dated May 19th with adjustments.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, if I don't hear restrooms again for the rest of the year, I'll be happy.
You think so, right?
Okay, good. I'm glad that's done. New business, request for a blade sign to hang over village-owned property. Since it's hanging over the property, it goes to the village, also goes to the Historic District Review. There's a letter explaining it's 24 inches in length. There's a little diagram of it. I think we've allowed it in a number of other places. So any discussion on this?
Yes. The email says that it is 24 by 10 by 3/4 of an inch. In the same email, it says it's 30 inches by 10 inches. It's got to be one or the other. Which is it?
Well, one is one the bracket and one the sign?
It doesn't say that that's the case. And if you look at it, it's 24 by 10 by 3/4, and then 30 by 10 by 30 by 10.
On the diagram, there is a measurement of the sign itself at 24, and the bracket extends beyond it in the diagram. So I would assume, I don't know, given the way she's written it, but I would assume that the sign itself is 24 and the bracket is 30.
Yeah.
That's like in the drawing.
Yeah, I think that we need clarification on that. No, but by
Sorry,
the way,
but it kind of looks like it's saying that it's mounted on wood. So perhaps the wood
it's
is
no, the sign is wood, the bracket is metal.
Yeah, and it says that the sign itself is 30 by 10 made of wood,
right.
an MPO and fully painted and primed. So
And it also says it's 24 by 10.
it's like conflicts a little. Is there a length that's allowed and not allowed?
Yes,
I know
yes.
24 inches.
I will get to that. So the code currently states that in 134-18A, left paren 2, right paren C, prohibits any sign which projects more than 12 inches. So my question is, has Ms. Romanello received approval from the code inspector or the building inspector or the ZBA?
She's headed, I know she's before the HDRB tomorrow. So was there a referral to the ZBA in addition?
The question is, has she received approval from the CEO, the building inspector, or the ZBA? That is to be in conformance with 134.18 A2C. In addition, Chapter 104, the current Chapter 104, signs and placards says in 104-2, signs and projections over streets, exceptions. No person shall erect any blah, 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 without written permission from the mayor. Any person applying for permission to erect any structure prohibited by this section shall be required to file with the village clerk a cash bond in the amount of $500 in form approved by the village trustees and proof of his insurance for liability, condition to save harmless the village of Cold Spring from any and all damages, blah, blah, blah.
So why is this on the agenda this evening if all of these items are still outstanding with
I could say beats that whatever out of me.
So did it go to the, Jeff, do you know if it went to the building inspector and then they referred?
Charlotte referred it to the HDRB.
That's all.
But not to the
Right.
ZBA?
That's not sufficient. It needs to go to the ZBA for Chapter 134, and then it comes to the village board for Chapter 104.
Okay, well, let's shoot it back to Charlotte then. Are there other signs though, right, that have been approved? I can't think of them. I know there's Pig Hill. Is there others?
Oh, there are a couple unapproved blades.
Okay.
Pig Hill's been there forever. So has the,
Recent blade signs, Flower Cup, Eliza.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Eliza could probably speak to this, her experience when she went through it with, I think it was Bill probably at the time.
Yeah, do you want me to tell you about it?
only in nice words.
Well, Bill gave general approval pending the historic district board review. So we submitted the application through him. He passed it to them and said they needed to allow it. And if that was acceptable, then it was fine. And the HDRB gave us approval for I guess it was I don't know. They approved the sign design and dimensions of our plate sign, and then we put it up.
That sounds about right with Bill.
It was
So-
really nice and easy.
So Jeff, you're going to take this up with Charlotte?
Sure.
Okay, and you have the code chapter numbers. In terms of the height of the sign, neither Chapter 134 or 104 identifies the necessary height. However, the upcoming Chapter 104 identifies a minimum height to the bottom of the sign of 8 feet. So I would recommend that in the absence of input from the ZBA and or the building inspector, that the minimum height for the sign be the lower edge of the sign no lower than 8 feet above the sidewalk.
I think that makes a lot of sense from a safety perspective.
I agree. Okay. Jeff, would you rather us talk to Charlotte or are you okay with that? No, just tell me.
Doesn't matter.
Okay,
I'm the one who's, I'll see her in the morning, so she'll be in tomorrow.
okay.
And I sent you all the chapter numbers and section numbers, right?
Okay.
And the only,
I think so.
and the
If
other,
not, I'll check with you in the morning.
and the only
Sure.
other thing is the 8 foot front to the bottom of the sign. That was not in the chapters that
Okay.
I sent you.
Also, and Kathleen, you might know this, is there something on where they can be mounted on fronts in certain areas?
Well, I was just trying to think about there's a decorative frieze on that building, and I'm wondering if how the height relates to Marie's 8 feet. I meant to get down today and I didn't have time to look at the front of the building, but obviously they're gonna have to work around that frieze, if there is a decorative frieze. I'm trying to remember that. I'm trying to remember that doorway.
I would think they wouldn't put it over the doorway.
No,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
it-
I'm trying to remember that facade. It obviously has to be in a place where it doesn't bonk someone in the head, but it also can't damage the facade.
So there's clapboard above the window.
So it could potentially go up.
It-
There was
it could-
discussion of when they decided against it ultimately, but this question came up at the coffee shop as well, because they were looking at putting a blade sign above the decorative elements on the clapboard, and they decided rather than having to come back and see the village board because of the protrusion, they'd go instead with window signs. So it's come up before, but it doesn't always end up being installed because of this configuration of items, right? The design plus the height plus the area over the sidewalk. So I assume that this also, so chapter 64, Jeff, does it actually have a referral? Because there is currently this, once an application is considered complete, it has to be reviewed in 3 days. Has the HDRB called it complete? The application? I would think without any kind of placement on the facade, it's not a complete application for them either.
The HDRB has it on its agenda for tomorrow. Sean has gone back to the applicant and asked about where on the facade it's going to be.
Okay.
Because that clock only starts ticking once the application is considered complete.
Jeff, when you send the thing off to Charlotte, could you also copy the HDRB so that they know that there's another consideration?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Next is resignation of Mike Lyons from the Highway Department. Seems like I won't read the letter, but Michael is moving on to another job. So best of luck to you, Michael. Thank you for your time. So I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Michael Lyons from the Highway Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thanks, Mike. Good luck.
Okay, then we have, let's see, request for Cold Spring Fire Company to host a fundraiser on the front pad for Memorial Day weekend. Any thoughts on this?
Are they doing this the whole weekend? Just Saturday, just Sunday, just Monday? I know they did it a couple of weeks ago.
Last weekend.
Last weekend. My first thought is they need to be back from the sidewalk where people walk. So if it's on their pad, it needs to be closer to their building and not close to the sidewalk strip. And also they can't have, I believe there was like some traffic issues. There was somebody out on the street trying to wave cars to come in and buy ice cream, and they can't have that. And they have to be careful of where cars are parked. So if they're gonna have it, my thoughts are back towards the building, and I know they need their own space. And we need to know what days. Is it the whole weekend or just one day or?
Saturday. Matt's email, I asked Matt earlier today. He said, I'm about 100% sure it'll be only on Saturday.
About 100% sure only on Saturday. That means only on Saturday, so.
So
Yeah.
I'm good. I mean, I think we should just send them a note and say they have to stay off the sidewalk, or maybe it'd be good to put cones up so people don't go past into the sidewalk. So
Well, if they put it back by the bell structure, it's off the, it's
Right.
back off the sidewalks, but away from the large doors that the trucks need to get out of.
are they just, I wasn't there. What do they actually have?
It was like a push cart, ice cream push cart.
Oh, okay. All right.
And an awning, like
an
a
awning,
tent.
But a
Okay.
fairly decent sized one from what I mean, I wasn't here, but a fairly decent sized one, I understand.
Yes, it was, I'm gonna estimate at least 10 feet wide.
Oh.
I'm fine with it. Do we need to adjust this, or what would everyone like to do?
I'm fine with it. It's just as long as we request that the sidewalks
Yeah.
kept
I
clear.
mean, if we want to vote for it just on Saturday, which is what Matt said, that's fine. If he wants to extend more than that, then he has to somehow get back to us.
And what would it, what would matter if they were wanting to do Sunday or Saturday and Sunday? What difference would that make in our?
Just so that when we approve it, we have something specific that we're approving. So-
There's not another overlapping concern on another day in terms of traffic or anything else. I mean, it's Memorial Day.
Not that I can think of, other than, it just wasn't clear. So, because the weekend to me means, especially Memorial Day, means 3 days.
Right.
But
So
we're
if
meeting
he's
on
saying-
Thursday. We can approve this for Saturday and ask them to come back Monday. if you
Yeah.
would like.
I mean, it's nice that they want to do a
Just ask them,
fundraiser.
we'll approve it on Thursday. Why don't we do that? Can we just?
Yeah.
I didn't hear what you said, Dave. Could you say that again?
Well, if Jeff, if you would, just, could you shoot Matt, or is it Matt or what's his name? Tom Merrigan, whoever, and ask him if it's Saturday and Sunday, or if they could just put that in writing so that we can approve both days, just so we have it in writing.
I have it in writing for Saturday for Matt.
Okay, all
So
right,
I'm
then
good.
we'll approve it for Saturday. If
Yep.
they like it for Sunday, I'm fine with that also, but I think, like, to Fran's point, we should have that in writing that they're doing it so that we know what's happening. Good to know what's happening. So I'll make a motion to approve the fundraiser at the Cold Spring Fire Company front pad, as long as the sidewalks are left free for pedestrians.
Second.
And it's Saturday only.
Saturday, yes. Saturday only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And okay, the next is committee appointments to replace Heidi Bender. We have the Audit Committee and Insurance Risk Management, since we're 6 months into the year or something like that. Who's on this now? I know it's Marie or Fran or Marie.
I was the backup to Heidi and Marie on the Audit Committee, so I've been auditing all the bills. And I was on the insurance with Steve and then with Heidi, and the new insurance contract is in, so we need to start working on that.
On which one? Sorry, on the
I'm
insurance.
sorry, the new insurance contract is in. It expires in July, but there's a lot of work involved with it. So I was planning on starting to look at it on Thursday, to go through the sheets and sheets of it.
So on the Audit Committee, since you were the sub or whatever, can you deal with that,
Yuck.
Fran?
Well, we need,
Yuck.
we need,
Yuck, yes, I did.
A grimace.
sorry, Dave, we need more than 2 people.
Okay, well, I was starting with one,
Okay,
which we don't have now. So we have 2 other able-bodied trustees. Can we?
I'm sorry, we currently have me
Yeah.
and Fran as the backup. What we need is a replacement for Heidi as the primary. Myself and Heidi were the primary auditors.
All right, got it. So I need one person. Would somebody like to take that on?
I would more than love to take that on.
Okay.
That's enthusiasm for audit.
That sounded better than my yuck, huh?
We have the grimace from Fran and the enthusiasm from Keith.
All right, I'll stay as
So, I can be enthusiastic now.
I'll stay as the backup if you need me, if that's okay.
Okay, and then insurance risk, we have, who is on that now? Fran, you're
I
the.
am, yep.
All right. And who was the backup?
There were just
There
2
is no
people on
backup.
that.
There was no
Okay.
backup. Okay, so do we have someone that would like to volunteer for that enthusiastically?
Tweeps, it's up to you.
Excited, look at her.
I'll do it if Pete doesn't want to.
Come on, Tweeps. Come on, step up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There you go. And oh, wow.
And,
These were Heidi's things, so you replaced Heidi. Actually,
I only in position. Yes, I'm happy to pursue that as well. Sure.
all right, I'll get in, yeah. The
Great.
insurance is a once-a-year thing. It's tedious, but it isn't totally horrible. So I'll get in touch with you.
Audit,
That's a
audit's totally horrible. Insurance is only partially.
I'm sure that makes you feel much better. It's not completely horrible.
Yeah.
It's not-
not really, but I'll do it.
Thanks, Trish.
Next, approval of bills.
Fran, you want to take this one?
Sure, I'll make a motion. See, Tweeps, you can do this next time around. I make a motion to approve batch number 6021 in the amount of 48,865.75.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was a lot. Good job, peeps. Next is the discussion on public comments regarding short-term rental. I need to pull that up, so.
I need to just get another light. I'll be right back. Thanks, sorry about that.
Okay, I guess if we can just go down, does everyone have the short-term rental chapter 100 up on their screens?
Give me a minute for that.
I have it on paper in front of me. I'll get it up on the screen.
Or however you want to work.
Do we have public comments on the website? Because I'm sort of,
The
Jeff-
written ones are on the website.
Yes, on the Board of Trustees page, there on the left-hand side, there's a button for short-term rentals. And it's in there.
the Board of Trustees page on the left-hand side. Oh, there it is. It says local law something or other. That's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
Thank you.
If you click on that, there's a bunch of documents.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Well, looking down at kind of one links to the other or whatever, I was going to just scroll down, but the first one, I mean, as I remember things, a number of the concerns were the number, short term, like if people wanted to rent for a couple of weeks out of the year, whether it's hosted or non-hosted, or people living in the place during rentals and a difference there, having people be able to use it as an investment that weren't living there. Seem to be the main concerns. The number of total properties that we allowed was in question. Lottery was in question. So I'll start on the ones that I think that we can easily address. One was like, if there's an event like graduation West Point and it's 2 weeks, or also somebody wants to go on vacation and rent their place for a week or 2 weeks. I think we should add something. I'm for, and I'm interested to hear everyone's opinion on this, to allow someone to, get a permit. I mean, I think it should still be permitted so we know when it is for 2 months out of the year. I mean, not 2 months, 2 weeks out of the year, not so that someone can rent for the West Point, or like I said, if they're going on vacation, they could rent for that 2 weeks, but that would be the max that they could, that they'd be able to rent. So thoughts on that?
I think that a tiered approach like that is right. There was some, there were differing statements about whether it would be a temporary way, whether a person wanting to rent for a short period of time, whether vacation or for a special event, would have a waiver, be given a waiver, or be given a special short-term permit. So it seemed as if there were differing ideas about how that would go. But I agree in concept that it makes a lot of sense to break out that kind of short term from a regular owner-occupied short-term rental.
I think if we have a permit and it's low cost, or $50 or $25, whatever it is, at least we know that that's the week that someone's doing it, or 2 weeks. So they don't come in and then have another one and whatever. There'd be less chance of people abusing it, I think.
And you would
Will we
a
be,
limited number of days for that type of,
What's that?
like, are you thinking of a limited number of days? One of the comments suggested 7 days. I think one suggested 14 as a maximum for what defined that short term.
Yeah, I think it should be at the max 14 days. And I think they should be, I don't know. It could also be, they should be concurrent. I don't think they should be, it's not the right word, but I don't think it should be like, you should be able to have one 2 days here, 3 days here, or whatever it should be. So, you know.
yeah, will we require an inspection for
What's that?
something like that? Will we require an inspection for something like that? As we are going to do for the regular short-term rentals?
I think it would make sense, you know, if we did a run through of the property. I mean, we're doing it for safety reasons for everyone else. I don't know why we wouldn't. I know that adds a little more burden to, but the difference of having, you know, people that aren't familiar with a property and making sure that there's egress windows or whatever in bedrooms and
Fire alarms.
yeah, I think that would make sense from a safety standpoint. If we're allowing it and then they don't have any of this and something happens, I think they can come back at the village.
So how would you imagine the kind of notice that someone were planning to go to, I don't know, planning to go to France and they were doing a house swap.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd want to have, if we were wanting to have the code enforcement officer do a basic inspection for the kinds of things we've just mentioned, what kind of timeline would they need to give in order for the building inspector to be able, the code enforcement officer to be able to do that? It's because that seems like something that in many cases, I mean, West Point is something that recurs, right? And we know that that's a commonly rented weekend, but a vacation or a house swap might happen on a shorter term. So what do we think is reasonable and something that people will comply with? Because if people can't comply, you can imagine them not. You know, if it's too hard to comply, they may not even try.
I would think if somebody goes on a vacation for a week or 2 weeks that they would plan that out in advance. I don't know how far they do. I know it takes me a year, but anyway.
I would think 6 months, maybe 4 months at the least. I mean, no less than 4 months. You know, because you have to get an inspector in there, and people can't offer their houses until they get an inspection clearance and get a permit. So, I mean, if you're, you know, if you are, say maybe after we do the regular, you know, permits that everybody else gets, maybe early in the year, we open up for, you know, a handful of short-term ones and say, like, you have to come in now, get, you know, pay for your permit, get the inspection, and then, you know, when you plan your vacation, I mean, you would know if you're going to do this unless something strange happens.
Well, I just imagine this is a tricky one, I think, because I can imagine people not planning that far ahead to take a 4-day weekend away or a 5-day weekend away, but want to be able to rent the house. And it's not something that they want to do on a full-time basis, like renting out a bedroom in their house for hikers on the weekend, but it's more spontaneous. And I think I'm just not sure how many people actually are that organized 4 months ahead for that kind of scenario. I can see absolutely for things like big weekends, like West Point graduation or something like that, how.
Or like somebody who spoke to us said they go away for 2 weeks in the summer.
Right, or
eventually
something
go
goes
away,
away regular, as a
you know,
regularly
And,
scheduled.
and that's sort of the people we're looking at. I mean, if you're gonna win a 4-day weekend,
Yeah, I'm not for that.
yeah, I mean, it was
I
like,
You can accommodate everyone.
yeah.
I just,
I
we're
was,
gonna have people renting, in that scenario anyway, so I'm wondering how successful. I'm not saying don't regulate it, I'm just asking the question, how successful will we actually be at regulating those less formal scenarios?
I think would be as successful as the neighbors want to be if they have
Yes.
people renting for more than, you know, a number of times, or don't have a permit, or call and say
Mhm.
someone's renting their place and we don't have a permit. You know, I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on, you know,
This may be
I mean,
another
it'll be
one
true
of,
about the whole short-term rent.
yeah, I mean, this may be another one of those elements of this code where in the first iteration, we make a best guess and see how it goes.
I think there's a lot of people that came up seemed like they knew that they were going on vacation, and those were the people I was thinking of. Not, and I think if you have the permit at the beginning of the year, whether you are going or not, you could get the permit, and then, like Fran said, you know, make sure you get it inspected, and then you tell us what the dates are.
So I see what you're saying, that it becomes known and becomes a habit, right? That if you're going to be someone who's wanting to do house swapping, you know that in the beginning of the year, you do this thing, and then you do this permit process, and then you have a
Right.
14-day temporary permit that you can use for X period of time. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll have to fine tune it, but I guess so. Is everyone kind of for that way? I mean, we don't have to do this and draft this tonight, but just in the concept of like a couple of weeks for people that want to go on vacation or whatever, and it's 14 days or 7 days that they should
I
14 contiguous days.
continue.
No more than 14 days, and they have to be contiguous.
right.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like that. I think that gives a little bit of leeway for people who like to go on vacation and rent out their house when they go for whatever reason. Some people say that's how they pay for their vacations, and that's fine.
Okay, I guess the next is the number that we're allowing, and I think there was some comments on, well, obviously some people, we're really not sure how many there are. There's been varying numbers, but thoughts on that, and also whether we should break that into, if someone has a home and they're renting a room and they're there during the rentals, should there be that be considered in the 34, or should the 34 just be for, you know, primary residence for when with the host not there on the property?
I think that's a reasonable approach, that we have hosted has one number and non-hosted has another number. They do not necessarily add up to 34. They could add up to more than 34. But I think the law, that what we've written thus far, was primarily aimed at non-hosted.
Yeah,
Right. And now you're trying to incentivize, I think that we're trying to incentivize owner occupied, hosted situations.
Not trying to incentivize, trying to recognize the need exists.
Recognize that the need exists and establish that as the more desirable scenario of the two, hosted versus
Not necessarily, just
Two different circumstances.
So larger number of, sorry, just to make sure I understood, Marie, you were saying a larger number of hosted than non-hosted.
No, not suggesting one is a larger number than the other, suggesting that there be between, and I have no number in mind, but there's some number for non-hosted and another number for hosted.
I see.
It was interesting, just to clarify something. I think people think from some of the comments I saw that we just pulled a number out of the air. We didn't pull a number out of the air. It is a percentage of the actual buildings in the village. We did a lot of back and forth on that. It wasn't just so good, like we like this number today, so that sounds like a good number. It was a percentage, and it was a fair percentage based on all the other municipalities we looked at. And it still is a fair percentage. I did look at Rhinebeck, which has a very, very small number of short-term rentals. The village of Rhinebeck, I think their number is 15. But when I spoke to the person in Rhinebeck who handles that, he told me that they don't have any limit on hosted short-term rentals. The one room, somebody coming in your house while you're there. Their concern was with the non-hosted, and they were limited to 15, and they don't even get that many requests. So, I mean, the only thing with hosted, in my thinking is, I'm thinking of hosted as somebody walks in my house and I rent them a bedroom.
Or an
a
apartment
room.
in your house,
Or what?
or an apartment in
Well,
your house, or
that's
an
the other
area
piece of it.
your house.
I'm not sure about an apartment in the house as opposed to a bedroom in the house.
Well, that was a couple of the scenarios did come up regarding someone who had a suite or an efficiency in a basement. Or the case of there's a building on Church Street that the building itself is owner occupied, but he rents out other units in the house, apartments, in the building. It seems as if the problems arise not around, or at least much less around hosted properties, hosted accommodations, than they do around non-hosted accommodations. So when I was saying incentivize, I'm thinking, those are sort of the best case scenarios where the host has an income, right? And the host is on site to address any negative impacts and is immediately accountable, as opposed to someone who owns a building, isn't in the village, and that the guests are alone in the structure. It seems like the Rhinebeck scenario recognizes that difference as well and attempts to regulate those which are potentially more problematic more tightly than the non-hosted than the hosted.
I think one of the things that I took away from it is a lot of people think that the only problem with short-term rentals is noise or the number of people. And I don't think that's the case. I think there's the total concern of the neighborhood and losing that feeling. There's also the loss of rentals. And I think those are concerns that just seem to have, most people didn't want to address or think existed, and not just the noise. We've had a number of noise issues, but I don't think they're out of control. To me, controlling the numbers so that we have, so that there's a compromise or a blend of everything, and not just, people, more and more people wanting to rent those places. And then there's also legal apartments too. It's like, if you have an apartment in your house and it's a full apartment with kitchen and everything, is that even legal? And some instances we know of it's not. So
well, but it seems again that the idea of hosted, in the hosted scenario, you're increasing accommodation and maintaining residences, which is what, if we look at that was a goal of the comprehensive plan, to increase accommodation and maintain primary residences. And the hosted situation does that. It's the unhosted situation that potentially takes, well, no, but you're right. You could have, if you had an apartment that you were renting in a regular long-term market rate, and that becomes a short-term rental, you do lose that as normal rental accommodation and potentially affordable accommodation. You're right. So yeah, it is true.
Yeah, one of the issues that was brought up, and I hadn't even thought about this, is the person who said they have gotten their doorbell rung at 10:30 at night looking for the location of the short-term rental. That will occur whether it's hosted or unhosted.
Right.
And certainly, I don't want anybody ringing my doorbell at 10:30 at night. So there are ramifications of having short-term rentals in your neighborhood that have nothing to do with whether or not it's hosted or unhosted, in addition to the neighborhood character, in addition to losing long-term rentals from the village.
Sure, but in the code, we also have requirements for signage and lighting, right?
No, we have a requirement that there be an external sign.
The
We
next
have a
one.
requirement for the lack of exterior lights after a certain
10
time.
p.m., right?
But you still have people who can't see the sign on the house. And so they come to your apartment or your residence and ring your doorbell and say, is this 11 Main Street? No, this isn't, not even close.
Well, for perspective, one person made that complaint. Registered that.
Probably been a couple more that I've heard of,
Oh,
but
I'm sure.
I'm not gonna kind of base I think that's just one of the other things along with noise and stuff that people weren't talking about. There, that stuff can happen for sure. Somebody could break down and come to your door, or somebody could be lost and come to your door. I don't know. I just think that, we're trying to like work with both sides, or work with those people that that did speak and say that they rent a room and they're there all the time. And I think that's way safer, and it also limits the number of people that are in it, and that's when noise and stuff actually happens. So I think there should be a breakdown on that and how we do it. Like Marie said, I don't have a number either, but I think we should, people, I'm not incentivized, but I think that we should make, there should be a difference if people want to rent a room and that's helping them get by. Then I think, that's fine. And we just have, they follow, getting it inspected and the other regulations we have and getting a permit and go from there.
Just one thing I would point out when we talk about hosted, it's not just renting a room. It's also renting a suite or a basement or whatever, where the property owner is at home at the time of the rental.
Mhm.
That would be hosted.
Right.
And in most places, that probably wouldn't be legal, because having another apartment in a one family in the R1, well, I know there are a few houses that have them, probably grandfathered, but for the most part, that's not allowed, right?
Correct.
So there is a difference there. Okay, so are people willing to, we'll work on that and see if we can come up with a split there, or give a little more thought to that?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Okay.
It seems smart. There was another, Dave, I think it was one, maybe two, that called out the LLC, the restriction on LLC ownership.
Mhm.
And a property owner suggested in one of the letters that potentially LLCs could be allowable in the business district, but not the residential district. We all know why we have concerns about LLCs in residential districts and the potential for houses being bought as investments and not being part of a neighborhood anymore. You could potentially, that's where our concentration of apartments outside of the apartment complexes. Main Street is where the concentration of apartments is, and that's sort of the most vulnerable stock in terms of affordability and potential for becoming short-term rentals. But I wonder if there's any way, given the legal avenue that currently exists in the business district for conversion to tourist homes, if a similar accommodation makes sense for LLCs in the business district. I don't have a position on it. I'm asking the question since it was raised in comment.
I would think that most structures in the business districts, which is Main Street in the B1 district, Main Street, and all the properties below the tracks, that the combination of LLC and owner occupied would not be congruent. That is to say, if it's an LLC, it's probably not owner occupied. in fact, if it's in the B1 district on Main Street, it's probably not owner occupied.
Correct. I'm asking the question, if like, you know, I'm thinking about the Barber and Brew building, right? Where the owner there said, I have multiple apartments that I rent out as, or I guess it's one apartment in the building that I rent out as, it's owned by an LLC and I rent it out as a short-term rental. It becomes off the market as housing stock. It could, under the existing code, become a tourist home. And we did not necessarily think about, LLCs weren't anticipated under the previous code. I'm wondering if there's anywhere, if you think there's anywhere that it makes sense to allow for LLC ownership in a scenario like that, where you have a business owner who owns a whole building and they've got commercial on the bottom and wish to do short-term rentals on the upper levels, or do we want to discourage that overall?
I would say two things to that. If it's owner occupied, it certainly falls into this category. They are more than welcome to set it up as a tourist home.
Mm-hmm. And so that
regardless of the ownership of the property.
So that capacity to take that existing legal avenue would remain regardless of what happens in chapter 100. They would still have that avenue available to them to become a tourist home?
Yeah.
Okay.
As the current code is written, yes.
But I mean, we're not anticipating a change to that, so that legal avenue would still exist.
I would suggest you go back to chapter 134 and see.
Okay.
I think that they have an avenue to become legal, and I think that's one thing that I'm not for is investment properties, not as a primary residence.
Well, I think that's the slippery slope, isn't it? That's the slippery slope we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, I think it takes houses off the market, and definitely does. And then, you know, I think rents rise, and we're definitely pushing people out, and maybe that's inevitable. I don't know, but out of anything in the short-term rentals, I think that I'm not for investment properties being used as short-term rentals. I mean, if they want to become hotels or inns or whatever on the business district, they can do that, as Jimmy did. I mean,
right. That's a good example.
I'd like to go back to 100-3A.
The what? Sorry.
100-3A. We have identified R1 and B1,
Mm-hmm.
and we have not identified I1 or I2. We know our rationale for R2, for R3, for B4 and B4A. I believe that we could allow short-term rentals in an I1 district and not have that number go up significantly.
Isn't the I1 district going to go away?
It is, whenever it is that we get to adoption of the code. And at that time, it'll become R1, as you've seen, it'll become R1.
So they would be then included. So why? I mean, I don't understand, because then if we do include I1 here, then we're gonna have to change this again in 6 months or a year or whenever.
Which we may have to do, right?
And I don't.
So for example, Fran, if once the rezoning comes in, the number 655 will go up.
Right. Do we want to keep 5% of that?
That was our rationale, right? 5%.
And then
So,
why would the I1, while it remains, or its last days of its life, why would that be different than B1? If we're going to treat R1 and B1 differently, wouldn't I1 fall more under the B1?
Yes, I agree it would. So within chapter 100, wherever we differentiate between R1 and B1, we would say R1, I1 and B1. we would clump them together.
I would, and I'm trying to get in my head, and I'm sorry, but I never can quite do this until I open up maps. I would prefer not adding the I-1 at this point and just, I mean, as you say, we're gonna have to change the code, whether we add I-1 now and then have to go back and take it out, or whether we don't add I-1 now and the I-1s become R1s, and then we have to change that because the numbers are gonna be different. So one way, but if we add the I-1s now, not all the I-1 is gonna be R1 from what I can remember. Is that correct?
I think
some
I
of
think
them,
that I think that all of them. Well, hold on a second. I've got my notes.
I'm looking for that.
One becomes MU, right?
No, sorry. The undeveloped I-1 becomes MU.
Right.
Developed I-1s become R1, 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 R1. Some become PR1. Those are currently parks anyway.
Right.
But almost, I don't see any situation where there is an I-1 that is undeveloped that will become R1.
So if we add I-1 here and all the Marathon property becomes MU1,
Yep.
is that going to be, are we gonna allow us short-term rentals there, or are we not?
We're not.
I think that sort of gets a little bit nuts, and I would, my vote would be not to add the I-1s, let it ride until we make the changes, and then just pick up the R1s as they come across.
My understanding from the planning board comment, I think Matt's on, that they had concerns about the defensibility of excluding I-1.
I don't know why, I don't remember that
I don't remember that from the planning
being
board.
discussed.
Are we able to inquire of Matt since he's on the call?
I see, I'm sorry, just one, I see like 7 I-1 properties that are going to become R1s. And then all the rest of it is pretty much Marathon. Well, one of them is gonna be R3.
Is that
Yeah,
Hey, Marie,
that is going to be changed to R1.
could you, when your head was down, it was away from the microphone. Could you say it again?
So yes, I'm trying to make it further. 1-7 the Boulevard. That will not go to R3. It'll go to R1.
right, yeah. Mhm.
So yes, the
Okay.
undeveloped properties will go to MU1, and MU1 is not is identified as not being available for
Yeah.
short-term rentals.
Yeah. I mean, I would not add them at this point. I think we're trying to assume what we're gonna vote on later on. And if we add the I-1s now, then as soon as they become MUs, even though it's undeveloped, they may say we add I-1s now and somebody sells a property that's in an I-1 with the thought that you can have a short-term rental, and then it becomes an MU and they can't.
And those are currently undeveloped properties.
Mhm. Right.
And MU1 says, no, you can't.
Right. Mhm.
Did we run this by John at all? As far as our liability issue, an issue, or them coming back to us and saying that's just arbitrary, or why is an I-1?
That's what I was just trying to find. I thought it came from the planning board, but maybe it was a John.
I think it came from an issue on Rock Street.
Yes, it
Oh,
did.
that comment did during
Yes.
the public hearing, but it was mentioned previous to that
Mm.
by either the planning board or John first.
I don't
I mean,
remember.
there's
John.
plenty, there's districts, and we have, each district has its own, regulations. So, saying one right now doesn't have it. I don't see why we couldn't do that. I mean,
And arguably a mixed use district is could potentially have less disruption from short-term rentals than a purely residential district, right? Because if there's already mixed commercial or creators space in the zone, there may be more tolerance for varying kinds of residential use, various kinds of usages of accommodations in the district than you
Yeah, but
would.
a mixed-use district and a mixed-use area can have a hotel or can have anything else. Why should we add more short-term rentals in the village in an area?
Well, just throwing it out as a contrast to,
Mhm.
you know, perhaps, I'm not sure our logic is sound in saying that, because you could make the argument that a mixed use area could tolerate short-term rentals more or differently than a purely residential district. So I'm not sure the logic holds up.
The lot size for mixed use is the same. I think it's the same as for R1 and maybe a little smaller. The
But the
thinking
use is
was that for MU1, the property which will become the primary MU1, that the mixed use will probably be in the north section and the west section. The south and the eastern section, the south section and the eastern sections the south section and the western sections will be probably straight residential, but the north section and the east section will probably be mixed use because they will have the most access, the closest access to the main thoroughfares.
Right, except we don't have a plan. I mean, we don't know any of that yet. We assume, but we don't know.
If you remember the charrette,
Yeah, I'm thinking back to that. Yeah.
that is where the charrette identified the mixed uses.
Right. Yes, but I'm saying a charrette is different than an application.
Certainly it is.
So, yeah. It's all assumptions at this point. Anyway,
So is this a question we can run by John about the I-1?
I would.
Okay. And the question to John is what?
Is it discriminatory or whatever the word would be?
Is it defensible?
Include I-1 from, having short-term rentals. And if the I-1 property is going to turn to R1, I just think we're going to get this done. So I don't know how long, the question will be resolved, I think, shortly, but I don't know. Do you feel that
I
way?
wish I had your optimism on that.
Okay.
I mean, I would say that hopefully the short-term rental chapter will be done shortly. And in that case, once we finish the code stuff, the I-1 people will know where they stand with it. I know I'm not John, and I know I'm not a lawyer, but I think we have a right to make a decision as to which districts we want and which districts we don't want in this. And I'm not sure we're discriminating against anyone, but it's not personal. This is the way the districts fall.
Well, but we have to be able to say the why, right? Are the impacts?
Do we have to say the why? We said we have 2 districts that we're allowing them in.
Are the impacts, the potential impacts in I-1 different than the potential impacts in R1?
But what if we just decide we don't want them in an I-1?
But
All right, you know what? I'm sorry.
Why don't we want?
We'll pass it to John, because otherwise I won't make any logic out of it. Okay.
Okay, let's move along, see what happens with that one. Next was the lottery. People had, balked at that. Some others, I think there were a few that liked it. I'm not sure if we change A and we go to different numbers on that, maybe a lottery, maybe everyone that enters the lottery will be in it. I don't know. I don't know how else you make something fair when there's a limit on something. So if someone has ideas on that, if you're trying to limit it and there's a number and you have more people that want, that feel they want an STR than we're allowing, then how else do you do it? It can't be first come, first serve. I mean, I don't know what other ways there are. So if anyone has any thoughts on that?
If we allow hosted, basically almost carte blanche the way the Village of Rhinebeck does,
For that, but
You may not have, I mean, what Rhinebeck says is they allow 15 non-hosted and they never get 15 applications. So if we allow hosted, we may not have 34 non-hosted requests for permits. I mean, that's just a question. I don't know, but that may limit the number of applications we get.
Well, they're not
For the
on, they're not on the
non-hosted.
Metro North line. They're further from the
This is
city.
true. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of reasons that I think Cold Spring could be more desirable for investment properties that way, and that's sort of the root of the concern. Some of the feedback was also that an annual lottery is too frequent. There were some requests to extend the period of the permit. I think 3 years was one of the ones. Still require an annual inspection, but extend the period in which the permit is active.
But that
doesn't
messes
go-
up
yeah, I
with
understand what
people.
you're saying. It doesn't like answer whether how we're going to actually find the number, or if it exceeds the
right,
number,
right,
how we
right.
deal with it. I mean, so I think there's two different questions there: whether we want to extend it more than a year, and how we're going to delve out the number that we come up with if there's more than. So if we change it so that unhosted, or that the person doesn't have to be in the rental, and limit that to like 15 or 20 or whatever we come up with. And then I think we should, I'm not for just having whoever wants to have a short-term rental that's going to be owner occupied. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I mean, if we go that way, then, everyone that wants one can have one. I don't know if everyone would be happy with that. I don't think in a village, like whoever wants one just can have one if they get a permit.
No.
Thoughts on how many people? I mean, I guess this goes back to the percentage and numbers. I mean, does anyone have a feeling on should that be regulated, or how to regulate that?
Regulate what, Dave?
Regulate the numbers. If we break it down to like hosted and unhosted.
Well, I thought we had at the beginning of the conversation said that we might have two different numbers, one
Right.
for hosted, non-hosted, which is the 34, and then one for hosted, and it's not clear that we'll have a number for, well, if Rhinebeck does not have a number, okay, for Rhinebeck, the question is, do we want a number for hosted?
Actually, that's the question. Yes.
Yeah.
I would, if we're doing hosted and unhosted, I would lower the number for unhosted,
I would too.
maybe down to like 25, and then maybe 20 hosted. I don't know. I mean, that's just a number off the top of my head, so that's not legitimate. But and while we're talking about permits, and I know Kathleen, you said some people ask for 3-year permits, but if we do a lottery, and I didn't get the lottery this year, I have a chance if I do a permit again next year, if we have a lottery again next year. But then if you're not going to do a lottery for 3 years,
Sure, but
it messes me up.
if you are someone who has made an investment in furniture and an egress window and amenities for guests, and then your permit's only good for a year, can you make enough money in the year to offset the cost of that investment? The other thing I think about with this is, we have, there are two sides to this, right? We have folks who have stepped forward and said, I'm operating a hosted or a non-hosted short-term rental with full knowledge that it's not allowable under the current law. And the flip side of that is, well, yes, and we know you are, and the village has not enforced it over time. So I feel as if we have to have some ownership of that non-enforcement, and some recognition that people have made investment, rightly or wrongly, made investment based on that non-enforcement. And I'm wondering if it's reasonable to say, well, if you're operating as of a certain date, you are part of the approved, and you pass inspection, that number forms the basis for the hosted allowable short-term rentals. Non-hosted is a completely different story, but maybe that's what forms, excuse me, the basis for the number of hosted short-term rentals, recognizing the ones that have been allowed to operate, asking them to ensure that they come into compliance with codes, right? So that we know that safety is happening, and that begins the base.
I think if someone's investing in putting windows and whatever, then it's a commercial enterprise. It's not like I'm trying to get some money and get by.
Sure.
Okay, and so do we want, we have a residential area. It's not a commercial area. So why would we, going to like, I'm putting all this money into this or whatever, well, you're investing and that's becoming a commercial enterprise for you. You're investing in something to make money. And that's not what residential areas are about to me.
Sure. But we're also, I think we're recognizing or trying to recognize the desirability of hosted short-term rentals over non-hosted, and also recognizing that I get concerned about the defensibility of knocking out people who are already operating when we have not taken steps to enforce the code we have. I worry about how defensible this is without acknowledging that we're in a place with shared responsibility.
Well, we're in this place not because it doesn't necessarily have to be this administration that got us.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Over the years, this has
Here.
happened. There have been the laws and people have done it, and whether you know it or not. And then in the last 2 years, it's come to our attention at where we're at. So
Yeah, and we're trying to get a handle on it now. We're doing the right thing.
okay,
I don't think we should be responsible for, I mean, when I bought this house 20 plus years ago, I was down at the office checking regulations for everything I did. You buy a house in a new area, you need to know those things. You may know that, the village isn't going to enforce that, but you also know darn well that it's not legal. And I can't can't justify building a law around the fact that, well, people are doing it anyway, so then we have to cover, our butts and their butts and let them keep doing it. People who are doing it typically.
Trying to find a compromise, right? And recognizing folks who have been hosts that are not disruptive of neighborhoods, right? And are willing to come forward and be inspected and permitted. We're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing regulating, no question. We're doing the right thing regulating short-term rentals. What I'm trying to get at is, I'm asking the question, should we be considering, when we establish the number of hosted rentals, that there are existing hosted rentals that we have not actively not enforced, and they have grown in that void? And is there, if they are not, we don't have complaints against them, we don't.
Well, let me ask you that question. What's your answer?
I'm not sure, honestly. I'm asking and I'm sort of thinking about it. That's the purpose of this evening, is to bounce ideas around. I'm not sure the answer to that.
I know, but
I worry about.
You must have a feeling on it, Kathleen.
No, I don't. My worry is, I tend toward some accommodation of people who are already in business, because I worry about the defensibility of suddenly making illegal a practice that has been in place and has not been addressed by the village. That's what I worry about. I'm not saying everybody should do it. I'm saying we have these are the circumstances, as John first says, right? These are the facts that we're dealing with.
We're not suddenly making it illegal. It has been illegal. So we're not suddenly making anything. What I worry about, and one of my biggest concerns is the people who live in this village who have said, I don't like, people in and out of my neighborhood. I don't like people. I don't know who's next door to me.
Sure.
So some of the notes we got that, like, I've been here, you're not being fair to me. I bought a house in a residential neighborhood, and I don't like the fact that people are just coming in and out. You're not watching it. So there's that part. We're jumping over hoops worrying about people who are doing something. And I understand that piece of it, but we also have to be very conscious of the people who are asking us and crying out for help, because this is their residential neighborhood. This is the neighborhood they live, they bought their houses in, and they want it to be safe. They don't know who's in and out of the house next to them. They don't know if they should call the cops because there's someone in who they don't know, or if it's a legal thing or whatever. There's people who are very concerned about that. And that's the piece of it that I want to keep in my mind,
Absolutely, Fran. Absolutely, Fran. I'm raising these questions as points, asking, is there a balance to be struck? And maybe there isn't.
Oh, I think one thing is we're not going to suddenly do it. I mean, we're going to phase it in. And so that's one thing. The other is like, if you're parking on Main Street and nobody enforces it and then you get a ticket, should you get a ticket? Because, usually nobody enforces it. So,
I mean, if you're breaking the law, yeah.
well, that's what we're doing.
You're breaking the
All right,
law.
I can see that logic. I can see that logic.
Well, we're trying to allow it. We're trying to do our best to accommodate almost everyone, and not everyone's going to be happy as
Very true. Very true.
And if we phase it in, and people know about this now and have known we're working on this for at least a year, and if they don't, then I don't know where they've been, because a lot of them were at our meeting. So I think we phase it in, and
And are we
and as
extending?
far as how many years, I'm not sure how that works. Maybe only 30 people are going to sign up. And if we have 20 that can be non-hosted and 40 that can be at, maybe there's not a problem at all. And everyone will get one. And I can see extending it more. I think one of the things is let's see how this works for the first year was one of the things that's been brought up a number of times.
Yeah.
So I just want to remind people it's 8:30 and we've been at it for 2 hours.
Yes.
So we're at 100-3A and we'll resume.
Will we?
Yes, we will.
We
So-
will. On Thursday,
Have
right?
a session on Thursday or no? Yes, we're on for
Yes.
Thursday.
Yes, we're on for Thursday and it's code update.
It's just
You-
code update.
Yes.
Do you want to-
6:30?
6:30. Do you want to
6:30.
start off with chapter 100 or go into 134?
Was this Thursday? Next Thursday?
This Thursday,
The following Thursday is the
public, public meeting on parking.
Okay.
So Thursday, the 27th, 6:30. Are we finished with 126?
I responded to a couple of the missing measurements.
Okay. So I will go back and just add those in, and then I think we're pretty much finished with that. And that will adjust as we go through the parking thing too, so that should set, I guess, for now.
Yep.
So I'm good with either 100 or 134, your call.
What do you want to do, Dave?
I think we continue with the code update. Not chapter 100. Let's go to try to finish or have a discussion on what we're going to finish also and what's left. I think we need to get a handle on it, the whole code update. So,
134 is the last chapter, right, Murray?
Well, 134, we've got to do 127, which is residential parking permit.
All right.
And we need to have a discussion on chapter 64.
Okay. Mhm.
you had mentioned something about the steep slopes and those others. Did you? You were mentioning
Those are all done.
Oh, that's what I thought. But I thought you had mentioned those are things that we have to do.
No, they're big chapters. They're significant in terms of their implications to the village.
Oh, I know what you're saying, man. Okay.
Steep slope and floodplain management.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's start up with whatever the remaining chapters are, and then we hopefully will have some time for 100. And if we don't, then we'll get to that as soon as we can.
So 6:30.
6:30,
6:30.
yes,
Okay.
Thursday.
Public
Very nice.
comments, Dave?
I think I'm going to just close the meeting tonight. I'll adjourn.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Is
to
that
adjourn.
is that a motion, Dave?
Yes.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, good night.
Good night,
There you
everyone.
all.
Night.